On today's episode, pop the champagne, light the fireworks. I am celebrating record number 1000 of my collection. So hey there and welcome back to Sonic Safari, a channel featuring tales of record collecting. I am your host Marcus, a Swedish hipster lost in the fog in San Francisco. So on last week's episode, we looked at the records in my collection that have increased the most in value. So if you haven't checked out that video yet, please do. There were some surprising records that I did not expect. But for now, party hats on. So did I really buy record number 1000 the other day? Not really. I have bought way more records than that throughout my lifetime, but given that I trail, sell, and purge constantly, I've never had more than 1000 record at one single point in time, until now, that is. So of course I wanted to show you that record that has the honor, and also go through my collection and pull some of the records that I consider crown jewels of my collection, which is in part a video response to a video Melina Murphy did a while back where she listed 10 of her crown jewels. So if you haven't checked out her video, you should, link in the description below. So as I was going through my collection to pull out the records that I consider to be crown jewels, I pretty quickly realized that most of them were for sentimental reason more than financial ones, and these are in no specific order. Okay, here we go. All right, so first up we have this one, Van Morrison with Georgie Fame and Friends. How long has this been going on? That was recorded live without an audience at the famous Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in London in 1995. So this record might not be super easy to come by, but really the reason why it's so important to me is that when we moved to San Francisco about 10 years ago, we stayed at an apartment for 1 month waiting for our stuff to arrive and to find a place to stay permanently, and that place only had 10 CDs, and this was the only one that I really liked. So whenever I listen to this now, I get transported back to that time when we were very excited but also nervous to start a new adventure so far away from home. So I wouldn't consider myself an audiophile per se, maybe a borderline audiophile, which is what JT calls me, but it is also true that I really appreciate a high quality sounding record, and it doesn't really get much better than this. So this is Gillian Welch Boots, The Lost Songs Volume 1, 2, and 3, released on Acme Records in 2021. And it doesn't stand out only in my collection because of the fantastic folk music. The Gillian, Welsh, and Taylor Rowling has this amazing chemistry. It's almost like their guitar playing and their voices are joined by the hip. But everything about this release is so high quality. They take such good care in everything they do. The vinyl, the pressing, the box is just beautiful. And it also comes with this amazing book that has all the lyrics and the chords if you happen to know how to play the guitar. So this is a record I'm super happy to have in my collection. So Elliott Smith's self-titled album was his second studio album that came out in 1995 on Kill Rock Star. And if you don't know Elliott Smith, he's acoustic indie. It's just him with a guitar, and the music is very beautiful in its sadness, and songs like Clementine and Needle in the Hay are all-time favorite. And this right here is the 25th anniversary box. And what I think was very neat is that it includes a coffee book that is actually part of the packaging, which is very cool in my opinion. And it also includes an additional record, which is the first known recording of Elliott Smith. And it sounds surprisingly well because I believe it was just a friend of his that put a recorder next to him. So I just think this is a beautiful celebration of one of my all-time favorite records. Okay, so next up we have this one, Boris Liane, French writer, musician, and poet. Possible and Impossible Songs from 1957 on Philips. And I love this record because it makes me think of my wife. Boris Vian is one of her favorite writers, and I discovered the music through her. And I love the music on this one. It has this roaring 20s feel to it, and I just imagine them hanging out, a group of friends at a cafe in Paris, playing music and drinking absinthe and debating the meaning of life. This is an amazing record. So when I started listening to jazz, I started with the usual suspects, as most of us do, I guess. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, and Bill Evans. And then I started looking at those recordings, who were playing on those, to discover more. And Lee Morgan was one that immediately stood out. And now he's one of the musicians that I have most records on. And this here is Lee Morgan's Volume 3 on Music Matter Jazz, this beautiful gatefold. And I also picked up this one, which is TomCat, again on Music Matter Jazz, on this beautiful gatefold, if I can get that to be displayed. And to me, this is just a perfect combination of a great sounding recording on a great sounding pressing. So extremely happy to have these. So music and records really remind me of moments and places, and this is an amazing example of this from the Scottish post-rockers Mogwai. This is EP from 1999, and I bought this in a record store in Washington, D.C. I was doing an internship at a company over the summer while attending university in Sweden, and I didn't know anyone, so I just ended up walking around in the city a lot under a blazing July sun, and one day I picked this one up. It's beautiful instrumental, dark, cinematic music, and songs like Stanley Kubrick and Burn Girl Prom Queen are absolutely beautiful, and it really reminds me of that time in my life. So I do like soul, but it's also true that I have very few soul records in my collection, and it's also true that on my list of my all-time favorite records, I would definitely put this one. So this is Otis Redding's Otis Blue, and this is the analog production reissue from 2016 on this gorgeous gatefold. And this record is mostly covers, but I find that his voice makes the songs unique. He has this hint of melancholy that makes all the difference. So if you're only going to own one soul record, this would be my suggestion. So speaking of soul, here comes another one, The Solution Communicate from 2004. And this is a side project from the guitarist and singer of the Helicopters, who here plays the drums, and the soul singer Scott Morgan. And this is just the perfect blue-eyed soul record. Just listen to the song My Mojo Ain't Working No More, and he will know exactly what I mean. And I'm still on the hunt for their second record. So as you might know by now, I was born in a small city in the north of Sweden. If you know, you know. And one of the most famous bands from this part of the country would be the Wanadys. And they had some success here in the US as their song You and Me song, which was on this record, Be a Girl, was part of the soundtrack to the Leonardo DiCaprio movie Romeo and Juliet. And this is just the perfect power pop to me, a la Posies. And I'm very happy to have tracked down their two best albums, in my opinion. Again, Be a Girl, and also this one, Bagsy Me. And this also happened to be the very first concert I went to all by myself when they were supporting this record, and it was absolutely fantastic. So this music has a lot of sentimental value to me. So last but not least, I do want to mention Three Blind Mice, which is this amazing Japanese jazz label that was established in the 70s to showcase the thriving jazz community in Japan at the time. And these are audiophile quality already from the start, and Impex also have done these amazing reissues. And they are so nerdy that they even have outlined how the musicians were standing in the studio at the time it was recording, that you can only love, right? So here we have this one, Midnight Sugar. Also this one, which is Misty. And the last one is Blow Up. And I will list the artist in the description below, but these are absolutely fantastic records, and I love having them in my collection. Okay, so those were some of the highlights from my collection, in my opinion. So which one was record number 1000, then you might ask yourself, and it was actually this one, All News Are Good News from Surprise Chef. And this is a band from Melbourne, Australia that labeled themselves Instrumental Funk Masters, and I can only agree because this record is full of jazzy, soulful, funky beats. So highly recommended if you want to get the party started on a Friday afternoon. And now, I guess, on to the next 1000. All right, friends, so that's it for today's episode. Please like and subscribe and all of that good stuff. On the next episode, we're going to talk about resonance records. Until then, tack och adjö.